So what do you got? I have a jack.
King. I win. It's the higher card, buddy.
King.
Ace. I win again. Okay, third and final round. What the? Okay, be right back. But don't change up the cards. Show me your card.
Ace.
2. I win.
What? Why do you win?
In the third round, it's always the lower card that wins.
Seems like I can't win. What's the name of this game?
Jimmy's game. Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage.
And I'm Deniz, the Buddymeister.
And today we continue our 100 years of Satyajit Ray special, in which we review several of his films in honor of what would have been his 100th birthday this year.
Shatranj ke Khilari, or The Chess Players, was written and directed by Satyajit Ray. It was released in 1977. It's based on a short story of the same name by Premchand, who is famous for his modern Hindustani literature and is regarded as one of the foremost Hindi writers of the early 20th century. Numerous of his stories were adapted as a movie or TV series.
The Chess Players was Satyajit Ray's only non-Bengali language film, the only feature-length Hindi/Urdu production of his. Apart from this, he only made a short Hindi film for TV a few years later, Zadgati or Deliverance, which was also based on a short story by Premchand.
And The Chess Players was also Ray's most expensive film, with several stars of the Bombay cinema, some actors from the West, and also large period sets, which contribute a great deal to the film's atmosphere.
I really enjoyed the whole introduction part of this movie. The Chess Players is a period film, and Ray thought it was rather important to give the audience a little history lesson. He was certain that people knew nothing about the history of Lucknow and its people. And while I don't know if that's true or not, it's certainly true for me. So I was really happy to learn at least some basics before the actual story begins to unfold.
I knew a little bit more about the history. At the time I watched this movie, I actually was also reading a book about the British Empire and India and what went down between the years 1600 and 1947. And that certainly helped me to understand this movie better and the psychology behind it, especially when it comes to the communication between the British East India Company, respectively the general and appointed resident of Lucknow, and the King of Awadh.
The film is set in 1856 in Lucknow. We follow two aristocrats, Mirza Sajjad Ali and Mir Roshan Ali, played by Sanjeev Kumar and Saeed Jaffrey, who are pretty careless towards their duties and spend their days playing chess and nothing but. Their story is embedded in a bigger story, that of Wajid Ali Shah, the King of Awadh, who is confronted with the fact that the British want to take over the administration of Awadh.
The introduction of this movie, the prologue if you will, is quite wonderfully realized, with narration by none other than Amitabh Bachchan, and with paintings, letters and even some animation.
And before that, there's also this very minimalistically but also quite strongly staged game of chess between the two protagonists, who we see as these vignettes in front of just solid black.
The name of this movie, The Chess Players, obviously refers to those two, but it also refers to the game that the British and the King of Awadh are playing. But these games work highly different. First, we need to note that Mirza and Mir are actually playing Shatranj, an older Persian version of chess that again has its origins in the Indian game Chaturanga. Shatranj and the chess that we know differ in a few aspects that are crucial to get what this movie is about in my mind, and we learn about those English rules in the movie.
In the English version, the minister is called the queen, and the queens of the two players are opposite each other. But most importantly, in the English version, the pawn's first move can be two squares instead of just one, and if it reaches the opposite end, it becomes a queen. When Mirza and Mir hear that, they kind of laugh it off, but when they hear the reasoning for it, it's a whole other story, because the answer is, the game gets over faster.
And this of course clearly hints at the fact that the Indian people, the Indian rulers and the British Empire play with two sets of rules. Mirza and Mir are playing Shatranj, but the King of Awadh and the British general are playing English chess, only that the King of Awadh doesn't know the rules and also doesn't care until it's too late. But if you know the history, I think this can't even be compared to a classic game of chess. Instead, imagine the British playing with 16 pieces and the Indians playing with maybe a handful. That's actually closer to reality. Oh, and the British can change the rules anytime they want, of course, which also shows in the way they handle the whole thing with the old and the new treaty.
Yes, what one shouldn't expect though is that the chess players clearly takes a side. It would be easy to assume that it might be posed against the British rule and very favorably for the Islamic king. But that's not really the case. There's admiration and condemnation for both sides. Ray himself has summed up his thoughts about his own film in a very fascinating way, and though it's a long quote, I think it's very interesting to include it here. He has said, "Easy targets don't interest me very much. The condemnation is there, ultimately, but the process of arriving at it is different. I was portraying two negative forces, feudalism and colonialism. You had to condemn both, Wajid and Dalhousie. This was the challenge. I wanted to make this condemnation interesting by bringing in certain plus points of both the sides, by investing their representatives with certain human traits. These traits are not invented, but backed by historical evidence. I knew this might result in a certain ambivalence of attitude, but I didn't see Shatranj as a story where one would openly take sides and take a stand. I saw it more as a contemplative, though unsparing view of the clash of two cultures. One effete and ineffectual, and the other vigorous and malignant. I also took into account the many half-shades that lie in between these two extremes of the spectrum. You have to read this film between the lines."
And you really have to read between the lines. It's not a film that makes it easy for the viewer, especially if you're not that familiar with the history. There's so much in this one.
I'm very positive that I missed out on a lot of details and nuances as I was trying to make sense of what the movie wanted to tell me.
Definitely yes, but there is somehow also a part of this movie that is quite approachable, mainly because the characters themselves are so precisely written.
I was quite surprised how lighthearted the film is. It has a very peculiar tone that's honestly not that easy to grasp. There's definitely a satirical touch to it, and there's a lot of humor and fun banter with very sharp dialogue. For example, between Richard Attenborough's General Outram and his subordinate Captain Weston. But of course also between Mirza and Mir. But I think there's also some sweet melancholy and at the same time condemnation of this specific time and place.
The acting is superb in this movie. It's always on the highest level with Satyajit Ray. Sanjeev Kumar and Saeed Jaffrey are wonderful together, talking about fun banter. How Mirza and Mir tease each other, how you just know that they are friends for a very long time. It's just so well acted, so well written. And there's of course also all the interaction with their respective wives, which can be pretty fun too, although also very different.
It's very amusing and charming how these two grown men are trying everything in their power just to make time and get away to play some chess.
Oh yes, and when things get a bit sticky, like when they secretly play at Abajani's house, they just bolt.
The Chess Players is a Ray movie through and through. It has this usual quite slow pace that's able to immerse you into both these parallel stories, which are also shot like we are witnessing a game of two players, turn after turn, back and forth.
And that really sucks you in. And I think the historical complexity, alongside this metaphorical use of the game of chess, that also makes it hard to fully understand it, also generates some of its fascination.
Definitely. And by the by, this movie is also a wonderful and passionate tribute to the game of chess.
I was never good at chess.
Big surprise.
I wanted to highlight something else that displays to me how the game between General Outram and Wajid Ali Shah presented itself. There's this great monologue by the king who can't explain himself why he has to abdicate. Like I said earlier, he's not able to in some way see the fault in himself, and he's desperate in need or search for an explanation why the British aren't satisfied with his administration. The tragic thing is that there is of course no satisfactory explanation for that, because the British more or less just took what they wanted for any kind of reason.
To take up on a metaphor that's used in the Chess Players, Lord Dalhousie ate the last cherry. That cherry was Awadh, with its capital Lucknow. Dalhousie annexed 250,000 square miles of Indian territory over the course of 8 years.
At the end of this movie, the grand game of chess is won by the British Empire as they march into Lucknow. The game of Shatranj between Mirza and Mir is on the edge of becoming a tragedy as they get in a fight that compromises their friendship.
But they pull through, and Mirza invites Mir to another round of Shatranj. All while the world around them, the world they know, collapses. I really enjoyed this movie, but I was nonetheless a little bit lost in the end. As I've said, it's not an easy film, despite its lighthearted nature. It's certainly one I should revisit at some point in the future.
I really love this movie. It still makes the rounds in my mind. It's yet another masterpiece by Satyajit Ray.
So, what would we say in German about The Chess Players?
Die Schachspieler ist eine facettenreiche, psychologisch präzise Parabel über den britischen Imperialismus in Indien Mitte des 19. Jahrhunderts. Satirisch, bissig und unbeschwert, aber jederzeit auch eindringlich und tiefgründig.
I give The Chess Players 8 out of 10. It's more like 8.1, but I don't do that.
For me, it's 9 out of 10. It's more like 9.4, but I don't do that either. Did you know that Mirza Ali and Mir Ali kill each other with their swords at the end of Premchand's short story?
No, I didn't know that. I think I prefer Ray's ending. So, what are your thoughts about the chess players? Leave a comment and hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd and also on Patreon, simply at the Jimmy Cage.
And you can hit me up on Twitter at the Buddymeister.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like, and make sure you hit that bell for all we have to tell.